Hello, Jellyfish Jammers. That's what I'm now calling my fan base of my 4 friends from Eckerd and my parents who watch this podcast. Even though I only have one recorded, this is going to be the second one. I have a beautiful host here. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Skye. I went to college with your Jellyfish Jam host, Emma, and we're actually like pretty okay friends in real life.
Yeah, we're like all right friends, I guess.
It's fine. It's whatever.
So what do you do? What's your background? What's the haps?
So my background is not in jellyfish. I also studied marine science at Eckerd College, and I studied a type of seaweed called sargassum while I was there, which I think we're going to get into a lot of in our discussion. But yeah, it's pretty cool. If you don't know what it is, you should definitely look it up, because I didn't know what it was when I went to college, and now it's my entire life and personality. So
woot woot. I even got her a beanie that says sargassum on it when she
completed. Yeah, it's my favorite. I wore it today.
Incredible. Yes, so I think today we're just gonna, talk about, we lived together. Oh, there's my cat. Hi, Minty. We lived together for a summer on Eckerd's campus, both doing research for Eckerd College. And so I think we're gonna talk about that a little bit. What we love in marine science, just our lives,
It's gonna be funky.
Super funky, super fresh. I think I'm gonna now make this podcast more of just not completely related to jellyfish, because I haven't really done that much with jellyfish. I just really, really liked them. But I think it's just gonna be all marine science, 'cause it's fucking cool, man. Okay. So we lived together our junior year summer going into senior year.
Yeah.
We both worked for Dr. Amy Sweda. Incredible woman. We love her. And Skye did her sargassum research. She had her own thesis that she was working on, and I was in a big lab. It was a big project for microplastics out of the Tampa Bay Estuary and Research Fund. So let's start with you. What was your favorite part about living on campus during summer and walking the 15 minutes to Galbraith every single day?
Honestly, just being on campus and not having any other classes, and just being able to focus all of my time on research and spending that time with you and playing copious amounts of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Incredible game. Plug for
over 200 hours.
Yeah, I know. I looked at my Switch, where you can see all the times. It was over 200 hours played of Breath of the Wild. I was like, oh god.
Yeah, no, we did that. That was our off time. But it was just a really good experience, just being able to, obviously now looking back on how our time in college got cut short, having those 3 months there really impacted my experience, and it almost feels like I got that time back in a certain way, because we were really just enjoying our time there, and it was hard work, and it was hot as hell.
Mm-hmm. Florida summers are fucking brutal.
Florida summers are wild, and Emma had a car, but I did not, so she would drive to the lab, and then I would just walk back and forth 4 times a day. But it was just a really good experience, and I'm so glad that we got that time when we did. Pros and cons: we had to live in freshman housing, even though we were going to be seniors, which was interesting. But it was just the 2 of us in a dorm, which made it really enjoyable, and yeah, I loved that summer. That was such a good summer.
Yeah, I definitely liked the aspect of there not really being that many people there, so literally our entire lives were our respective research, and so I think that was a cool way to immerse ourselves in marine science. Other people have internships and stuff, but it's just a completely different feel when you're on a campus where you're used to seeing all of your friends and a bajillion people all of the time.
Yeah, it was nice to be somewhere that we were already familiar with. I think we would have been fine anywhere, but the fact that it was the 2 of us in a place that we knew and loved and were already so familiar with made it a lot easier to buy food, because we knew where everything was, and when we did want to go out, because it was pre-pandemic age, we could, and we knew where to go because we were already there, and
Yeah.
And it was just like easy to maneuver and stuff like that. So I think that being at the place where we went to school made it more enjoyable.
Yeah, and another part that was nice for me, I don't know if you had the same experience because you were in your own individual lab, so you were kind of like locked in a little dark room for most of your day, but I got to be with like a research team, and I was the only like upperclassman on that team, and so it was nice for me to see people that were also into marine science but not necessarily in my grade because I never really knew who any of them were before, so it was kind of nice to like get to know not like the people I'd be passing my legacy on to, not that I had like that much of a legacy at Eckerd, but it was
Actually,
yeah,
it was like, I mean, I met them through you, and like now, like I was Dr. Sweeta's Ford Scholar and now Nicole is, so like we really did kind of pass our legacy onto them through us, and like we talked to them about marine science and like what it was like and everything.
Yeah, that was another cool part because like we have this thing called comps where, well, Skye didn't have to because she did a thesis, but you basically either do your own independent research with a professor or you have to do comprehensive exams, which a lot of other marine science kids and I went through, and it was absolute hell. It was basically you just have to take like 3 exams, or it was 2. Was it 2? It was 2 multiple
choice and then an oral,
and
right?
then and then an oral and also an essay.
Right.
And so you just like have to recall every single marine science class and even just like general biology classes like cellular processes, like ecology and evolution. Like you had to recall all of those from your past 4 years at school and then just like take a giant compilation exam of all of those. So it was kind of nice to like see them still happy and enjoying marine science.
Enjoy marine science, but like yeah, I think there's definitely moments even when like even that summer when I was doing research, like there were definitely moments where I was like I don't like this. Like I it's kind of like you can love someone but not like them all the time. That's how I felt about research. Like I loved what I, but like there were days where I was just like I can't. Like if I make another fucking agarose gel, I'm gonna kill myself. But then I got through it and it was fine. And like a lot of people, I think when they go into research, like going into Eckerd, I remember being really bummed that I didn't get the freshman research award because that was like the end all be all in terms of like, oh, you get guaranteed freshman research your freshman year. You're already in with professors. Like that's the goal. And I remember being like so bummed that I didn't get that. And I was like, I don't know how to stand out in this crowd of people who had done like marine science camps and like done like already internships and all this stuff. And like here I was coming from Pennsylvania being like, well, I just really liked this video game that I had when I was a kid called Endless Ocean. And like, I really like the ocean and stuff like that. Like I didn't know how to stand out. And so being able to like explain to the underclassmen like how to pull your weight and like how important the balance is between like schoolwork and a social life, because that is really important. I mean, like I don't know how you feel about it. I think we feel similarly, but like for me, like having that balance, especially junior year, between like taking all of my hardest classes and also like being able to maintain like a solid college atmosphere was really important to me. And like not everyone can handle that. Like I think you and I both know plenty of people who couldn't find that balance, and like it's different now too with virtual classes, so I don't know how it affects things, but
who knows how that's going right now. Just thank goodness we're not in it. But I mean, like it was like also difficult because like both of our research went like into the year too, and so we did have to balance like classes and then this like extra thing on top of it, which not that many people were doing. Like a good amount of like the STEM kids were in some form of like research or club or something related to that, but then there were a good group of people who just just had to worry about classes and like their social life, which I mean I'm definitely grateful for the experience, and like I learned a lot of really cool things, and like it has definitely got me like way more interested in microplastics. Like I mean I've obviously like always cared about plastic and what effect that has, but I never really like thought about how it was breaking down and like getting ingested and like all of these like different variables that go into it. And then I think another really good part of being on campus during summer was like really getting to know your professors, because that's always one of like the main things they talk about with Eckerd, and like even with a lot of like bigger universities, they're like, you need to get in with your professors in order to like have those good relationships and then carry that forward into your career. So I think that was really nice for us to like be able to like see our professors in kind of a different light, where they don't have to worry about classes either. They don't really have anything else going on except their research kids.
Yeah, that's something that I was just thinking about the other day too, because it's like you come from high school where it's like a very much like a hierarchy of like your teachers and then you, like you're the student, they're the teacher, and like that hierarchy goes on to higher education. And like in college, I would say it's even more pronounced, but like going into college, I think you're like, oh, your professors are like even at a higher level than like your teachers. Like they are untouchable. Like they're like experts. And like something that I really liked about Eckerd was the fact that it was such a small teacher to student ratio that you could kind of get to the point where you realize that your professors are people too, and like they're just doing their best, and they're there to help you, and they're teachers, but they're also comrades. Like they're training you to be on their same level. They want you to have the knowledge that they have. And so
because when you go into like the professional world too, like especially like in the STEM fields, like it's all collaborative work. Like it's there's always like going to be somebody at the top of the food chain that you report to, and that you know you like bounce ideas back and forth off of. But like that's the whole point, like you bounce ideas back and forth, and like they treat you as an equal. And I think that like college is a good like transitioning point to get from, oh, teacher, I can't really talk back to you or really talk to you about anything, to college being able to be like, hey, like I found this kind of interesting, like let's talk about it, sort of thing.
Yeah, and like emails back and forth at 3 a.m. about your
yeah. Dr. Sweeto is known for responding at such crazy hours of the night.
But it was kind of great though, because like even when I came home in March and I was finishing my thesis and I was like available all the time, like I would wake up at 1 a.m. and be like, okay, she just emailed me, like it's time to like typing on my computer, like delirious at 1 a.m. being like, well, she's awake, so am I.
Yeah.
And, like, there's this extra level of like you want to impress them. They're so good at what they do, but then when you do impress them, it's like the best feeling in the world.
I know, you're like, wow, I really did that, didn't I?
Yeah.
And it was cute because we got to go to Dr. Sweeta's house at like the end of summer too, and just like all the research kids got to hang out with each other. And Dr. Sweeta,
right after I got my belly button pierced, and her daughter called me like a week after, and her daughter was like, who is it? And she was like, it's Skye. And her daughter was like, that's the one with the belly button piercing, because I couldn't get in the pool because I had just gotten my belly button pierced.
Right. Well, I got in the pool, and Dr. Samard and Dr. Gallons were there, and their kids were legit trying to drown me in the pool.
I remember that. I was like just sitting there like taking it all in, and Emma was like fucking like playing with the kids, and I was like, oh my goodness. Like,
I was playing with them. I was like, haha, this is so fun. They just literally shoved my head under. I was like, Dr. Gallons, please help me. I think your daughter's trying to drown me.
That was such a fun day though.
But yeah, I don't know. Summer was a really fun time for, I don't know, both of us getting like super into our research, and then also just like chilling.
Yeah, and also like not to get sentimental, but like I feel like our friendship just like really blossomed.
Our friendship exploded.
We went from like we were like good friends, but like not like the bestest of friends. We were like, oh, you're living on campus, I'm living on campus, like we'll just live together.
Yeah.
And then we came out of that and we were like inseparable.
And it was also funny because it was supposed to not be just us.
Yeah, there was
the room. There was supposed to be another girl, and then she was like, "Oh, I have a dog," and I was like, oh, "Okay, well, like I have my snake, and then I have Xenia's snake, who we're also watching. So like, is that like cool? Like, is your dog gonna like flip out?" And she's like, "My dog really hates snakes. I can't live with you guys." And I was like, okay. And then they just
sad, but then we were also like, yes.
Yeah, and then nobody else just joined our room, so then we just hung out, really.
Yeah, we really just like locked ourselves in that room for like a while.
We would literally like only go to 2 places, like Galbraith and our room, and like Hawkers.
And like the pool. We went to the pool a fair amount.
We went like twice.
Okay, I went more than you.
Okay, you went more than I did. I got off of work and I was just like, I am exhausted. I'm gonna just vegetate.
Well, my schedule was more not, this is not to say that I like slacked or like didn't work as hard as I needed to, but like
Freaking slacker, doing your own thesis.
My schedule was way more like I could kind of dictate my own time. Like I chose to follow your schedule for most of it because like you being on a schedule just kind of helped me with my schedule. But like there were days where I was done it too, and like that was fine. And then there were Saturdays where I had to go into the lab and you didn't, and like that was fine too. There were nights even where I had to like I was like, hey Emma, can you pick me up from Galbraith? It's 8 p.m. and it's thunderstorming and I don't think I'm gonna make it back to our dorm.
Yeah.
For reference, our dorm was like here and Galbraith was like here. Like
it was like the two like opposite ends of campus. Yeah, it was definitely nice to have a schedule because I don't think, like, I do good remotely, but I'm not the best at doing things remotely. Like I get very distracted really easily. And so I think it was nice for me because I would have to go into the lab at like 8 a.m. and then it was one of the downsides of like a lot of research, I think, is just like the repetition aspect of it, which like I totally get, like, you know, it's part of the scientific process. You gotta repeat it so you know that it actually is like valid. Mm-hmm. But just like constantly just like sifting through all the seawater and picking out all the bugs. There was also, I don't know if anybody here knows what a love bug is, but it's the most annoying creature on planet Earth.
They're harmless. They're just like really annoying.
They're harmless, but they're just like, I hate it when bugs just like move really slow. Like it's one of those really slow moving bugs. I'm like, you literally have no purpose. Like it can't zoom. It can't like bite you. It doesn't do anything. They just reproduce and die. And so there was like a huge like surge of love bugs that summer, and they would somehow get like 5 miles out from Eckerd where we would be like doing our sampling. And so we would like go on the boat, we would trawl behind the boat for like 3 or 15 minutes, like depending on which sample we were doing. And literally like half of the samples would just be like love bugs. Like there were just so many. And since we were studying microplastics, we have to like, with pieces of seagrass and stuff, we have to scrape off all of the particles on it, spray it down like with distilled water. Like we have to do that whole thing. And so every single time I'd have to pick up each individual love bug with a pair of tweezers, spray it off, make sure I get all the little microplastic particles off of its wings, and then we would make these like mosaics of just like dead bugs.
Y'all were wilding.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, the competition thing is valid though. Like for me, like that was the summer. So like I did polymerase chain reaction PCR, which is like a repetitive process in general. But then, so you put your DNA samples into the PCR machine, you basically denature and then renature the DNA so that it takes it from double-stranded to one-stranded, and then it attaches to your primer and then it becomes two-stranded again, and that amplifies the section of DNA. And then you have to make a gel that you put your sample into and put it under UV light, and that kind of like tells you how strong the concentration of DNA is in your sample. And so prior to that summer, I had already run all my samples and made a list of like which samples had bright bands, which samples had faint bands, which samples had very faint bands, which samples had, I think I went down to very, very faint bands. And so like if they weren't bright bands, which was most of them, you had to rerun the sample like by a magnitude of 2. So if it was faint, I would run them twice. If it was very faint, I would run them 4 times. If it was very, very faint, I would run them 8 times. And so like there were days where I was literally doing like, well, it does 88 samples at a time. So I would do like 4 PCRs a day and run like 6 gels a day and then start again the next day. And it's just like, it's a lot of listening to podcasts. It's a lot of watching obscure shows on Netflix while you're waiting. It's a lot of repetition, and that can get really boring really quickly, and you just have to like kind of remember the end game.
Yeah, that was the same for us because like our project it was relatively new at the time, and so we were still like working out a lot of the kinks, and so that like added a whole nother aspect to it. And so basically we like extracted the microplastics as best as we could. Like we just kept sifting and sifting and sifting through like different size sieves and stuff, like 212 and 20 micron, and like looking at each of them under this microscope that had, I don't think it was UV light, it was like a special like cyan light. And so we would have to like stain all of our samples and put them through like the Buchner funnel, and like sometimes like they wouldn't stain. And it was also like so difficult to tell which particles were microplastics and which were just like little other random like sediments and like turbids and all of that stuff. So we would try and use this like computer program called ImageJ to kind of say how many pieces do we think are microplastics, and then how many of those pieces are this big versus this big versus this big. Like we just did 3 different sizes. And then after we did all of that, we're like, okay, like these seem to be accurate numbers. Then we realized that a ton of the data was like totally incorrect because our Nile red was staining other particles. Like it was staining like the carapaces of like copepods. And so we would have to go through each photo and individually count each microplastic. And there was like 1,000 to 3,000 like per little sample. And so you'd just be sitting there with a little clicker like, oh my goodness, this is kind of crazy.
Well, that's something that I think that thankfully my research didn't require a microscope, but like I think that a lot of young scientists might not realize that like looking through a microscope for even like half-hour increments at a time hurts your eyes so much, not to mention looking at a computer screen, like on top of that. I don't know how you did it. It
was like a great experience, obviously. I'm going to keep harping that point, but it was also not fun when like one day I would just be like somebody would take the bullet and be like, okay, I'll go in the microscope room all day, or okay, I'll be, analyzing photos all day. Like, okay, I'll be entering all the things into a spreadsheet. Like, it's just like such a process. And so I think like without a team, at least for my research, it would have been absolutely impossible, unless you're doing like a little subset of like what the general research was. And because we were funded, we had, specific guidelines and stuff that we had to follow, and we had different like dates that they wanted data by, and like sometimes we didn't have the data, and so we would be scrambling like the night before at like 3 a.m. like trying to compile all this data, like make super shitty graphs and be like, sorry, this is all that we have, like trying our best. But I mean, it's definitely like a really cool project, and like not a lot of people are studying microplastics, at least when the project was started. Like now it's becoming more and more popular, so I think that was like definitely important, even though a lot of people don't really understand why studying microplastics is important. They're like, okay, cool, more plastic, but it's just smaller. And I'm like, no, but there's like so many different things that like go into it also.
Yeah. Do you think that with the pandemic, microplastics are going to increase or decrease?
Oh, 100% increase.
Because I've been thinking about like the masks, and I see so many like what are they, N95? Those masks like on the ground everywhere, and I'm like, those have got to have microplastics in them. Like,
yeah, I mean, well, pretty much everything has microplastics in it, unfortunately, nowadays. Like it's like in our bloodstream, like it's in the air we breathe, it's in like, it's starting to like, how like water droplets form on a like piece of dust, they're now finding it going on microplastics and stuff. And also just like with the pandemic, how many like disposable utensils and things that are being used at like restaurants and like in hospitals and stuff. Like hospitals is kind of like the one like give me like, okay, like we don't want to infect more people than we already have,
right?
But yeah, just in general, like at Starbucks and like Dunkin' and like all of these fast food places, like you used to be able to bring your own cup to reuse, and like that was like going really, really well, and like people are starting to blame like plastic straws and everything, and we're like, yeah, all right, these are small steps that we're taking, and now it's just like totally backtracked. And I think it's going to be really difficult to like get back to the, I don't want to say it was a positive place we were in, but it was better than it has been in the past.
Well, it's hard too because it takes years and years and years for plastics to break down to that level. So like we might not even see the effects of the pandemic for years to come. And like that's one of the hard thing about environmental and climate science, and like because I'm going to attribute microplastics to climate change in this case. Is you tend to not see the effects of big events like this for a while, and so it's hard then to be like, oh, we've just come out with all of these new results, but they're from 20 years in the past or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's also like why microplastics is like such a new concept, because like disposable plastics were not widely used until like 15, 20 years ago. That's like when they really started, like they were able to create cheap polymers that were god awful for everything else except for the fact that they could make them and distribute them very, very cheaply, and it would be way more efficient than, you know, making like a metal spoon. Like,
Right.
and I don't know, just like the entire culture now of just people caring about more things than the environment and like what their effects have on it is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
I'm trying to think of another point to talk about. We've hit like climate change, we've hit environmental science, we've hit our summer.
Should we talk about what we're doing now?
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Hey, hi, I'm unemployed.
Hi, I'm also unemployed, but we're working on it. Well, Skye is going to grad school.
Yeah, I'm going to grad school. I've been applying to grad schools from home, as you can tell. I'm in my childhood bedroom. And so I'm actually not going to be working on sargassum necessarily. I could still be, but I'd like to expand my knowledge into more different kinds of algae because, like, I don't know, I was writing my personal statement yesterday and they say like make it a story, and so I've been like talking about how I got into what I want to do, and it's like even when I was a kid, like the big stuff in the ocean fascinates me, and like dolphins are great and like very cool, like whales so amazing
and overrated but so cool.
And like all like charismatic megafauna is great in like every sense of the word, and like I'm glad that there can be like ambassadors for the ocean or whatever.
Well, we're not those kinds of biddies.
But I've always just been like really fascinated by the small stuff, and like even when I dive, like I went diving once in Cuba and like there was a shark right next to me and I didn't even notice because I was literally looking in a sponge to see if I could see anything in this sponge, and I was like literally just like hovering over this sponge.
Yeah.
And like a shark swam right past me and I was like, oh, like
hey.
But like I think a big part of like science and like figuring out what you want to do within science is like just figuring out what sparks your interest like in the everyday. Like I've never been like obviously I went through my whales and dolphins phase. I feel like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But like I've always just really loved the small stuff, and like algae is one of the smallest it gets in the ocean. So besides like phytoplankton and zooplankton and all that stuff, but who cares about that?
Whatever. They're not important. Psych.
So yeah, I'm going to grad school.
Yeah. I mean, same for me. Like, I talked about it in my last podcast. Give it a listen if you haven't listened to it yet. Plug. But I mean, I like went down to Florida for like my first like I want to call it like scientific awakening sort of thing. Like,
that for you.
Yeah, my first like marine science, like, oh, you know. And like everyone was like, wow, look at all these cool fish in these tide pools. And I was like, wow, look at this glowing blob. That's incredible. How does it do that?
Tide pools are so cool and like underrated.
So
like if you're ever at the beach, just like go look in some tide pools because you'll find some cool shit.
Yeah, I could literally just spend like an hour just like staring into it, like rather than looking off to the distance for like a whale fin or
go and look in some tide pools. You're guaranteed to see something cool.
Yeah, and there's just like so many like small organisms too that like if you like whenever I go diving too, I usually just like I do like what they do. I think they do it at like Waldorf schools, but they call them like sit spots where you go and you like take a hike or like you just go somewhere and you just sit in a single spot for like 30 minutes and like just see the environment around you change. And so I always do that while diving. Like I'm not like go must like find all of the things. I'm just like I'm gonna sit, park my little butt right here right next to this super cool rock, and we're just gonna see like what's in it. And you see so many cool like bristleworms and like all of these like different inverts. Like I was so glad that we had to take invertebrate biology like to complete the marine science degree. Like that entire like class I was just geeking out. It was hard, but it was super cool.
It's a hard class, but it's one of those classes where like, you know, you grow up learning that like there are so many more insect species than anything else on the planet, and then like you look at the ocean and you look at all of the inverts in the ocean, you're like there are so many. They're so many.
Weird too. Like
so many.
There's so many. I just love how diverse they are too. Like no one looks like anyone else in the invertebrate community.
And there's so much still left to discover too. Like the first scientific paper I ever read was the Marine Census of Life that came out in 2010, and it was like a 10-year. I literally this is bad for the environment, shun me all you want, but like I said to my dad, like I was like, you have to print this out for me, and it was like 200 pages or something of this like scientific paper. It was basically a book that had been written, and I didn't have a stapler that would go through all of the pages, so
Is there even a stapler that exists that can staple through 200
I just like would staple sections, so I like stapled the methods and I stapled the introduction and like all of this stuff, and that was the paper that like discovered the Yeti crab and like the Dumbo octopus.
Oh my gosh, I love the Yeti. Can we just take a second and talk about the Yeti crab?
I look like a Yeti crab today.
Like you do. He's just like so furry, and he's just like, hey,
I love, like, that's the kind of stuff that always interested me when I was a kid, was like the weird, the biodiversity and the places that you would never expect biodiversity to be.
Yeah, and it's also like
the ocean.
Yeah, like a ton of my family members too, like they're like, oh, marine science, like you're gonna be a dolphin trainer. And I'm like, I mean, that could be an option for me, but no, like I think
psychology than it is.
Yeah, I want to like look at jellyfish brains, even though they don't really have brains. Like that's pretty cool. It's just like it's fun to get people interested in like the untraditional marine science life. Just be like, hey, look how like this box jellyfish has eyeballs. Isn't that crazy? And people are like, what? You're lying. And I'm like, no, actually, like, let me show you all this stuff. And I read a paper where they said that ctenophores may be the base of the animal tree of life. Fun fact.
Wow.
Instead of sponges. So like,
we all came from jellyfish, people.
We all came from jellyfish.
Here first. Yeah, no, I agree. And like, I don't know, for me too, I forget what I was gonna say, to be honest.
For me too.
And then I forget.
We were talking about small things.
Oh, I remember now. I saw a TikTok the other day of this girl being like, did you know about the Sargasso Sea? Like, I had no idea that this even existed. And I was like, yes. Like,
I knew that.
Like, there are things that like, it makes so much sense to us because like we've studied it now for 4 years or like even longer in some cases. Like there are things that I've known about since I was a kid. And I think sometimes like just as a human, it's hard to imagine that people don't know the same information as you. And so like just being able to be in a position where I can be like, yes, the Sargasso Sea exists and here's why it's cool. And like, here's why you should like watch a video on it or like maybe go even see it if you're near the Atlantic, like just, you know, hang out there or whatever. Like that's a really cool position to be in. And like scientific communication is the basis of learning and like blah blah blah, you know.
Like, isn't there a seahorse that's endemic to the Sargasso Sea called the Sargasso seahorse? Did I just make that up?
There's a Sargasso crab and a Sargasso triggerfish. There might be. Hold on. Sargasso seahorse. I didn't do the biodiversity. That was so many. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, no.
Oh.
That looks like a leafy. This looks like a leafy sea dragon to me.
Oh, okay.
But you know, leafy sea dragons would live in Sargasso. Like that's what they look like.
Yeah, that's also another like totally random topic is like just how like people just kind of view the ocean as like one giant thing and they're like, cool, there's fish in the ocean and there's like jellyfish and other stuff. Awesome. But like each region has such a specific set of organisms that live there, and like it's exactly how like land animals have evolved to like, you know, like the snow hare like lives in the snow, it's white, makes sense. Like same thing, like leafy sea dragon lives in like Sargassum.
I was just thinking about this last night because there's like one of the things that I love about marine science is it's kind of like Pokemon where like there's the leafy sea dragon and then there's the weedy sea dragon and then there's the rosy sea dragon and they're literally the same species.
They're just in different areas.
Yeah, and they've adapted to their specific area and they have evolved, like literally evolved. Oh my god, I'm blowing my own mind right now.
Evolution!
Evolved to look like their surrounding environment. Like you can't tell me that that's not a Pokemon. Like it is.
It definitely is. It definitely is. I completely back it.
I loved Pokemon so much as a child, and I would always choose the water ones.
As marine science.
No, yeah, that was like my thing. Is I was like, whenever I played a video game, it was like if it's not water oriented, like I'm not about it.
What is that one water game we tried to get, the Wii one?
Oh, this is the game that started it all. It's called Endless Ocean, and there was an Endless Ocean 1 and an Endless Ocean 2. And the Endless Ocean 1, and they were like fictional and had like plots or whatever.
Mhm.
But like the premise of it was that you were a diver and you could dive and like click on all of these different creatures and it would tell you their scientific name, facts about them, how big they were. Like it was a science game at heart.
Oh, cool.
And it was, the first one was one of the first games my dad got me for my Wii when I turned 8. It was my 8th birthday gift.
That's so
And you were confined to like I would call it like a tropical area. Like you got to, the more you swim around, the more of the map you would discover, kind of like Breath of the Wild. And but that was just one ecosystem. And then the second game, you could go from Antarctic, Arctic, freshwater rainforest. I think it was supposed to be like Brazil, Amazon.
Gotcha.
There was like a Greek, like a Mediterranean environment. There was like a deep water environment where like you could swim off the coast of some place that I think was supposed to be like the Red Sea. And then there would be an abyss and you could go down it and go down at the bottom. And then there was like the coral reef, like tropical, like atoll environment too. And each of the environments of different kinds of fish and like creatures that you could look at, and like there were like sharks and alligators and stuff, and also you could go up on land and like identify some terrestrial like birds and stuff. It was a really really cool game, and like there were fictional aspects of it too. Like the whole premise of it was like finding like a lost civilization and like all that stuff, but like you could what's it called when you like dig up you're like the treasure people underwater. Do you know what I'm talking about? I want to say scavenger, but I don't think that's the word.
Pirate looking for
No, it's like the people, I was almost about to say spelunking, but that's not it either. It's like these people that go and like you can use a metal detector underwater and like find.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know.
Part of it too, and you could like find like art. Like there was one area where you like swam into a buried a sunken mansion, and there was all this art there that you could then bring up and like get it appraised and all this stuff. It was like a really complicated game. And I'm not the only person whose life was changed by this game, because in my human experience class I went in and I was like, yeah, I want to be a marine scientist because of the video game I played, and like 3 other people were like, I had that game and like that's why I want to do it. So like,
no way.
despite what your parents say, play video games, kids. It'll change your life.
The first like scientific game I think I had was Spore. That was like my shit.
I loved that game.
Yeah, that game was so much fun. You just like start out as like a little amoeba, and then you start evolving into
and you can like add different things to your body.
Yeah, it's also like kind of the same thing as Pokemon too. Like you like level up.
I love Pokemon.
I know. Pokemon is just it's
an OG game.
I don't even know like what to say more about it. It's just
there's really nothing. I'm speechless about Pokemon.
Yeah.
If you're watching this video on YouTube and you like Pokemon, hit me up because I'm single.
I'll put her link in the bio. I'll put her Instagram.
Actually, we're both single, so
whoa.
Hit us up if you think we're cute and smart.
This isn't a dating show. This is a scientific podcast.
I'm here to help you. I'm just helping you. I'm helping me, helping you.
Helping me, helping you. Yes.
Helping me, help you.
Me helping you, helping me, helping you.
Pee pee poo poo.
Pee pee poo poo. All right, this is diverse.
You can edit this part out. I think you
I don't
can.
know if I'm gonna edit this. I think I'm just gonna leave it. I think this is gonna be like the new setup of my podcast, because it's kind of awkward just like filming myself in my room, like just like.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. I really liked your like PowerPoint-esque slides.
Thank you. It took me like a day and a half to edit it, and I was very frustrated for a lot of it.
If you can edit this, I want you to like put in like sargassum, just like floating.
I really think I have the ability to edit sargassum into your book.
I'll ask my YouTuber friends.
Oh, we should have put virtual backgrounds.
Oh, shoot. Can we still?
Choose
Hold on. I'm Googling sargassum.
Oh my gosh. Wait, okay, hold on. I have to Google jellyfish.
Yes, this is from the Nat Geo article, which, by the way, if you're interested in sargassum, there's a really cool Nat Geo article about the Sargasso Sea with Sylvia Earle. My dad the other day was like, you should just hit up Sylvia Earle, and I was like, that's like
Sure.
really bold of you.
If you can tell me how to get into contact with Sylvia Earle, let me know.
Video. Choose virtual background.
There's this too. Downloads.
Oh my god, there's pictures of Eckerd on here because I'm on the Eckerd.
Oh, that you can put as like a background?
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right. Look.
Wait, hold on. I'm trying to get mine fixed. 1 second, please.
Look, I'm a Sargasso fish.
Oh my gosh. Wait.
Whoa.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
You look like the Wizard of Oz.
Maybe I have to get out of the frame and do it. What the? Okay, Emma is not having a virtual background.
Okay, well, I can. Look, I'm zooming.
What? That's so cute.
So this is Sargassum. I couldn't tell you what form it is, but we're going to just assume that it's Fluitans 3 for the purpose of me sounding smart.
Epic.
Sargassum Fluitans 3. Could be Natans 1. Could be Natans 8. It's probably not Natans 8. It's probably Fluitans 3.
Can't really tell by the looks of it.
It's actually probably Natans 1. I hate that I'm doing this.
Okay, well, any last remarks?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
Well, thank you for coming onto my podcast.
Thank you for having me. I had a good
Yeah.
time. I hope I didn't talk too much.
No, you did great. I mean, you're my guest, so you're supposed to be the one talking. I guess that's how podcasts work, right?
I mean, I hope we did 50-50. I don't know. Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more content from Emma.
Even though I have 2 videos, actually 3 videos on my channel. Maybe I'll become a star. Who knows? There is like 90 views on my last podcast.
I did watch it like 5 times.
Oh, thank you. I watched it like twice just to get.
I'm just obsessed with you.
Stop. Oh my god. All right. Well, yeah, I guess that's a daytime chat with Ms. Skye Dibner, algae professional.
Enthusiast.
Enthusiast, that's the one.
Might be better. He's not a professional yet.
Yeah, let me know, like, if you guys, like, want to be on my podcast. Like, I'm sure it's really only my friends watching this. Thank you for your support, though, if you are watching. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Thanks, whoever else is watching.
Mom and Dad, love you guys.
Yeah, let me know if you want me to cover any topics, because I really don't. Like, I'll just literally ramble for, like, an hour about anything. So
Maybe I'll come back. Maybe I won't.
Yeah, you should, because
will.
you're the only person who showed interest in being on my show. So, anyone else, if you wanna come cop a spot, it's a hot commodity. All right. I guess this is the end.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye now.